As we walk the journey of life, full with its highs and lows, joys and sorrows, we all wonder about the mysteries that lay beyond the veil of death. We ask ourselves numerous questions about the afterlife, about heaven, about eternity. One question that vibrates in the hearts of innumerable individuals is this: will we know one another in heaven? This question isn't simply about curiosity. It taps something deeper. It's about love, connection, and the connections we enjoy on this earth. We seek for confirmation that our loved ones, family members, friends, individuals with whom we've shared our lives, will still be familiar faces when we cross into forever. The prospect of spending eternally with God in paradise is lovely, but there's an anguish in our hearts as we wonder, will we recognize our spouse, our parents, our children, and others who filled our days with love? Will we continue to have those relationships that define us, that give us so much value here on earth? To answer this, let's begin on a journey, one that explores scripture, spiritual knowledge, and the deep optimism that lies within the core of our faith. A voyage that will fill your soul with encouragement, inspiration, and motivation. First, let us remember that heaven is the domain of perfection. It is a place where there is no sadness, no suffering, and no separation. Revelation 21 verse 4 tells us, "He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain, because the old order of things has gone away." It is in this area that every longing of our soul will be answered, where we shall be enveloped in the purest love that emanates directly from the heart of God. But we must recognize that love is not something that we will leave behind when we pass from this life. In truth, love is eternal. Love is the fundamental nature of God. As 1 John 4 verse 16 explains, God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in them. The ties we create in love, those connections built in caring, sacrifice, and compassion, are neither trivial or ephemeral. They are a reflection of God's eternal nature. If we think that love endures forever, then it seems only reasonable that our bonds of love will continue in paradise. But in paradise, they will not be stained by jealousy, fear, or misunderstanding. They will be pure, perfect, and everlasting. Heaven is the ultimate fulfillment of our deepest need for connection, not its destruction. When we look to Scripture, we discover glimpses of divine acknowledgement and eternal companionship. Take the story of Jesus during his transfiguration, Matthew 17 verses 1 to 8. Here we see Moses and Elijah, long gone from the physical sphere, appearing beside Jesus. The disciples identify them, even though they had never met them during their earthly lifetimes. This suggests a basic truth. In heaven, there is recognition and knowledge beyond what we experience here on earth. The constraints of time and space do not limit our understanding in eternity. Consider also Jesus' resurrection. When he rose from the dead, he appeared to his disciples, and they recognized him. Yes, at first, some did not instantly recognize him, Mary Magdalene mistaking him for a gardener, John 20 verse 15, and two disciples on the road to Emmaus did not realize who he was at first, Luke 24 verses 13 to 16. But this wasn't because his identity had changed. Rather, their souls were still clouded by grief and confusion. Once their eyes were opened, they knew him. His resurrected flesh was still distinctly his, though now glorified. Jesus ate with his disciples after the resurrection, showed them the wounds in his hands and feet, and even allowed Thomas to touch him as proof of his identity, John 20 verse 27. This was no simple spiritual shape or an unidentifiable figure. It was Jesus, completely alive, his glorious body. This provides a compelling assurance that we, too, will retain our individual identities in paradise. But it goes deeper. If Jesus, in his glorified body, still bore the traces of his crucifixion, if he remained visible to his disciples even after death, then it comes to reason that we, too, will be recognizable in paradise. Our exalted bodies, free from misery and decay, will nevertheless be distinctly ours. We shall not become anonymous spirits traversing an everlasting terrain. No, we will know one another, and we will continue the ties we have formed in love. To completely grasp the fundamental essence of our everlasting identity, we must understand the power of the resurrection. As Christians, we believe that our bodies, though they return to the dust, will one day be raised in glory. This concept is crucial to our hope in eternal existence. In 1 Corinthians 15 verses 42 to 44, Paul writes, "So will it be with the resurrection of the dead. The body that is sown is perishable. It is raised imperishable. It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. It is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body." The resurrected body will be different, transformed, glorified, freed from the limitations and flaws of this life. But it will still be us. We will not lose our identity. In reality, we shall ultimately become the fullest version of ourselves, as God intended from the beginning. Think of a seed and a tree. The tree looks nothing like the seed, yet the soul of the tree was always present in that microscopic seed. So too, our earthly bodies are simply a seed of what is to come. In heaven, we will bloom into the fullness of who we were always meant to be. But we will still be us. We will still keep our nature, our memories, and our relationships, though now they will be liberated from all brokenness and sin. This gives us hope. We will identify one another, not only in a shallow sense but in the deepest possible way. We will witness the beauty of God's work in each person, a beauty that perhaps was only dimly seen in this life. We will view one another as God sees us, totally loved, fully known, and fully rescued. But what about the nature of our interactions in heaven? Will they be the same as they are here on earth? Yes and no. While we shall know and recognize one another, our relationships will be altered. Jesus offers a glimpse of this when he speaks about marriage in heaven. In Matthew 22 verse 30, he reminds us that in the resurrection, individuals neither marry nor are given in marriage. They are like the angels in heaven. This doesn't mean that the strong relationships we share with our wives, families, and friends will fade. Rather, it means that these connections will be perfected, freed from the faults of earthly love and immersed in the richness of divine love. In paradise, we shall no longer require the exclusive or possessive elements of relationships that sometimes define our human experience. Our love will not be bound to one person but will be vast, inclusive, and perfect. Every relationship we have, whether with a partner, a friend, or a family member, will be bathed in the light of God's eternal love. That doesn't mean we'll lose the special connections we've built in this life. Rather, those relationships will be cleaned and exalted. A spouse will still be a spouse, a parent will still be a parent, but the way we feel love will be immeasurably richer. In heaven, there will be no division, no exclusion, no loneliness. Every relationship will be a reflection of the love between Christ and his church, a love that is unselfish, unconditional, and eternal. There is something beautiful and soothing in the thought that the journey we begin with our loved ones here on earth doesn't end with death. Rather, it endures in eternity. In heaven, we will walk together in the presence of God, sharing in the joy, peace, and wonder of his reign. Imagine being reunited with a loved one you have lost. A parent, a spouse, a friend. Imagine the thrill of seeing them again, not as they were in their final days of disease or frailty, but as they were supposed to be, entire, healed, dazzling with the glory of God. Imagine walking hand in hand amid the beauty of paradise, not just for a brief reunion, but for all of eternity. And it's not just about reunion, it's about continuing the trip together. We frequently think of heaven as the finish, but in actuality, it is simply the beginning. The relationships we value on earth are merely a foretaste of the great companionship we will have in paradise. In heaven, we will worship together, serve together, and experience the glory of God's kingdom together. The notion that we will know one another in heaven should not only bring us consolation for the future, but also motivate us for the present. If our connections in this life have eternal meaning, then how we treat one another matters significantly. Every act of love, every word of compassion, and every moment of sacrifice is part of the eternal story we are writing with people we love. So, let us live with eternity in mind. Let us love one another deeply, for love is the one thing that transcends death. Let us forgive freely, understanding that our relationships are not transient but eternal. Let us build up one another, knowing that we are going together toward a bright future. When we stand before God in heaven, we shall look back on our earthly existence and see that every moment of love, every moment of connection, was part of the eternal tapestry He was making. We will see that our interactions, far from being ephemeral, were the building stones of eternity. Yes, we will know one another in paradise. We shall recognize the faces of those we love, and we will be known by them. But more than that, we shall know one another in a deeper, more perfect way than ever before. Our relationships, refined and glorified, will endure forever, bathed in the light of God's love. Let this reality fill you with hope and motivation. Your life, your connections, your love, they all have eternal meaning. The trip does not end here. The story is still being written. One day, in the presence of God, we will know the fullness of love, and we will walk together hand in hand into forever.